It was the smell. Granny Aiking smelled of sheep, turpentine and jolly sailor tobacco. The three smells mixed together and became one smell, which was, to Tiffany, the smell of the chalk. It followed Granny Aiking like a cloud, and it meant warmth and silence and a space around which the whole world revolved. A shadow passed overhead. A buzzard was diving down from the sky towards the Nac Mac Feagle. She leaped up and waved her arms. "Run away! Duck! It'll kill you!" They turned and looked at her for a moment as though she'd gone mad. "Dinna fash yourself, mistress," said Rob Anybody. The bird curved up at the bottom of its dive, and as it climbed again, a dot dropped from it. As it fell, it seemed to grow two wings and start to spin like a sycamore bract, which slowed down the fall somewhat. It was a pixie, still spinning madly when he hit the turf a few feet away, where he fell over. He got up, swearing loudly, and fell over again. The swearing continued. "A good landing, Hamish," said Rob Anybody. "The spinning certainly slows you down. You didn't drill right into the ground this time, hardly at all." Hamish got up more slowly this time, and managed to stay upright. He had a pair of goggles over his eyes. "I didn't think I can tack much more of this," he said, trying to untie a couple of thin bits of wood from his arms. "I feel like a fairy with the wings on." "How can you survive that?" Tiffany asked. The very small pilot tried to look her up and down, but only managed to look her up and further up. "Who's the wee big job who knows such a lot about aviation?" he said. Rob Anybody coughed. "She's the hag, Hamish. Spawn of Granny Aiken." Hamish's expression changed to a look of terror. "I didn't mean to speak out of turn, mistress," he said, backing away. "Of course, a hag 'ud have to have the knowing of everything. But 'tis nae as bad as it looks, mistress. I'll just make sure I lands on me heed." "Aye, we're very resilient in the heed department," said Rob Anybody. "Have you seen a woman with a small boy?" Tiffany demanded. She hadn't much liked Spawn. Hamish gave Rob Anybody a panicky look, and Rob nodded. "Aye, I did," said Hamish. "On a black horse, riding up from the lowlands, going hell for—" "We didn't use bad language in front of the hag," Rob Anybody thundered. "Begging your pardon, mistress. She was riding heck for leather," said Hamish, looking more sheepish than the sheep. "But she kenned I was spying her, and called up a mist. She's gone to the other side, but I dinna ken where." "'Tis a perilous place, the other side," said Rob Anybody slowly. "Evil things there. A cold place. Not a place to take a wee babby." It was hot on the downs, but Tiffany felt a chill. However bad it is, she thought, I'm going to have to go there. I know it. I don't have a choice. "The other side," she said. "Aye, the magic world," said Rob Anybody. "There's bad things there." "Monsters?" said Tiffany. "As bad as ye can think of," said Rob Anybody. "Exactly as bad as ye can think of." Tiffany swallowed hard and closed her eyes. "Worse than Jenny? Worse than the Headless Horseman?" she said. "Oh, aye. They were wee pussy cats compared to the scunners over there. 'Tis an ill-fared country that's come calling, mistress. 'Tis a land where dreams come true. That's the Queen's world." "Well, doesn't sound too—" Tiffany began. Then she remembered some of the dreams she'd had, the ones where you were so glad to wake up. "We're not talking about nice dreams, are we?" she said. Rob Anybody shook his head. "Nay, mistress, the other kind." "And me with my frying pan and diseases of the sheep," thought Tiffany, and she had a mental picture of Wentworth among horrible monsters. They probably wouldn't have any sweeties at all. She sighed. "All right," she said. "How do I get there?" "You dinna ken the way," said Rob Anybody. It wasn't what she'd been expecting. What she had been expecting was more like, you canna do that to a wee lass like you. Oh, dearie us noo." She wasn't so much expecting that as hoping it, in fact. But instead, they were acting as if it were a perfectly reasonable idea. "No," she said. "I dinna ken at all. I haven't done this before. Please help me." "That's true, Rob," said a Feagle. "She's new to the haggin'. Tak her to the kelder. Not e'en Granny Aiken ever went to see the kelder in our ain cave, snapped Rob Anybody. There's no way. Quiet, hissed Tiffany. Can't you hear that? The Feagles looked around. Hear what? Said Hamish. It's a susurration. It felt as though the turf was trembling. The sky looked as though Tiffany was inside a diamond, and there was the smell of snow. Hamish pulled a pipe out of his waistcoat and blew it. Tiffany couldn't hear anything, but there was a scream from high above. I'll let you know what's happening, cried the pixie, and started to run across the turf. As he ran, he raised his arms over his head. He was moving fast by then, but the buzzard sped down and across the turf even faster, and plucked him neatly into the air. As it beat at the air to rise again, Tiffany saw Hamish climbing up through the feathers. The other Feagles had formed a circle around Tiffany, and this time they'd drawn their swords. What's the plan, Rob? Said one of them. OK, lads, this is what we'll do. As soon as we see something, we'll attack it, right? This caused a cheer. Ah, 'tis a good plan, said Daft Willie. Snow formed on the ground. It didn't fall. It did the opposite of melting, rising up fast until the Nac Mac Feagles were waist deep, and then up to their necks. Some of the smaller ones began to disappear, and there was muffled cursing from under the snow. And then the dogs appeared, lumbering towards Tiffany with a nasty purpose. They were big, black and heavily built, with orange eyebrows, and she could hear the growling from here. She plunged her hand into her apron pocket and pulled out the toad. It blinked in the sharp light. What's up? Tiffany turned him round to face the things. What are these? She said. Oh, doke, grim hounds, bad, eyes of fire and teeth of razor blades. What shall I do about them? Not be here. Thank you, you've been very helpful. Tiffany dropped him back into her pocket and pulled a frying pan out of her sack. It wasn't going to be good enough, she knew that. The black dogs were big and their eyes were flames, and when they opened their mouths to snarl, she could see the light glint on steel. She'd never been afraid of dogs, but these dogs weren't from anywhere outside of a nightmare. There were 3 of them, but they circled so that no matter how she turned, she could only see 2 at once. She knew it'd be the one behind her that attacked first. Tell me something more about them, she said, turning the other way to the circle so that she could watch all 3. Said to haunt graveyards, said a voice from her apron. Why is there snow on the ground? This has become the Queen's land. It's always winter there. When she puts out her power, it comes here too. But Tiffany could see green some way off, beyond the circle of snow. Think. The Queen's country, a magical place where there really were monsters. Anything you could dream of in nightmares. Dogs with eyes of flame and teeth of razors. Yes, you didn't get them in the real world. They wouldn't work. They were drooling now, red tongues hanging out, enjoying her fear. And part of Tiffany thought, it's amazing their teeth don't rust, and took charge of her legs. She dived between 2 of the dogs and ran towards the distant green. There was a growl of triumph behind her, and she heard the crunch of paws on snow. The green didn't seem to be getting nearer. She heard yells from the pixies and a snarl that turned into a wail. But there was something behind her as she jumped over the last of the snow and rolled on the warm turf. A grim hound leaped after her. She jerked herself away as it snapped, but it was already in trouble. No eyes of fire, no teeth of razors, not here, not in the real world. On the home turf, it was blind here, and blood was already dripping from its mouth. You shouldn't jump with a mouthful of razors. Tiffany almost felt sorry for her as it whined in pain. But the snow was creeping towards her, and she hit the dog with the frying pan. It went down heavily and lay still. There was a fight going on back in the snow. It was flying up like a mist, but she could see 2 dark shapes in the middle, spinning around and snapping. She banged on the pan and shouted, and a grim hound sprang from the whirling snow and landed in front of her, a Feagle hanging from each ear. The snow flowed towards Tiffany. She backed away, watching the advancing, snarling dog. She held the pan like a bat. "Come on," she whispered. "Jump." The eyes flamed at her, and then the dog looked down at the snow and vanished. The snow sank into the ground. The lights changed. Tiffany and the wee three men were alone on the downs. Beagles were picking themselves up around her. "Are you fine, mistress?" said Rob Anybody. "Yes," said Tiffany. "It's easy. If you get them off the snow, they're just dogs." "We'd best move on. We lost some of the lads." The excitement drained away. "You mean they're dead?" Tiffany whispered. The sky was shining brightly again. The skylarks were back, and people were dead. "Ach no," said Rob. "We're the ones who's deed. Did you not know that?